The other thing I think is really important to mention is that, and you touched on it, Chris, but I want to hone in on it for people who maybe don't speak this
Sure.
language, is that a jockey box is, I like to, you called it something else, but I refer to them as a high pressure system,
Hmm.
meaning that you can't, in most cases, with 100 feet of coil, utilize what you could find on the internet as suggested PSI, which would be like 10 to 12 PSI
Yes.
for most things, correct?
Yeah. So yeah, they're not kegerators, and a lot of times people that aren't familiar with jockey boxes will reach out to people that have a kegerator or pour beer, and they're like, "Well, you need to set it at 12 psi or 10 psi," because that's the pressure that the brewery is setting it at, right? They've calculated the correct amount of carbonation for the beer, and they've said, okay, this keg needs to be at 12 psi to maintain that carbonation level, and then they set their draft system up so it comes out of the faucet at that, at the correct flow rate. When you get into kegerators and people building their kegerators, they need to calculate the line length from that keg to the faucet, and also they add in the equation of the height of that faucet from the keg, right? So there's this calculation that you can do to get the correct pour rate from your keg, because that's a short direct draw draft system, and they're trying to balance the system. Jockey boxes are on balance. It's a very long draw draft system. Like let me see, I've got we can share this real quick. So this is kind of what I'm talking about. So this is what a brewery will see. You've got your long tubing from your keg. It's adding gas, so the beer can either be pushed from your kegs through the system either with gas or with pumps, right? And so then this is being cooled by air, right? So they're forcing cold air through the lines so that it stays the same temperature once it hits your tower here. This is basically what a jockey box is. These lines are all crammed into the cooler, but it's not a balanced system. So we need to put 25 to 30 pounds of pressure on top of this keg in order to overcome the resistance of that long line, right? And so breweries, they know once they tap their keg with a jockey box, because they're adding so much pressure, they know that they're never going to bring this. Let's say there's half a keg left. They're not going to bring that beer back into their tap room and tap it, because the carbonation level may have changed a little bit and it may mess with their system. So they just, once they tap it from a jockey box, that's it. They know that it's done, even if they pour it all or don't, only pour half of it. So,
not to say that you can't still drink it after that. Like if your wedding party buys a half barrel of Bud Light and there's half left, they can still drink it. It's just if you have a tap room, you don't want to serve something that's not perfect, right? So we test all the time. We'll put one keg on a jockey box 6 or 7 times just to see what happens to it over time, and it diminishes for sure if it's not kept cold, and it will overcarbonate over time.